Well, Alan, I want to thank you for coming on.
Of course, bro.
You're living currently in West Palm Beach. You're from Broward County.
Yeah, born and raised.
You're coming up on a year sober.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
By the time this releases, you'll have a year sober, so congrats, bud.
Thank you, brother.
You were telling me a little bit about your story. Your story's wild.
Yeah.
And let's take a step back. Let's go to early childhood. You grew up in Broward County. What was that like? Did you have siblings? What was your upbringing like?
My upbringing was pretty tough. Mom and dad, alcoholic family, drug addiction family. I remember growing up early, my dad always had this type of medication around. And I didn't know really what it was, but I knew, sometimes it came before I went, and I was always curious, I remember, going to school one morning, mom and dad got into a fight. My mom called the cops and said that, my dad put his hands on her, right? So I'm watching my dad go to jail early. And that was just a dysfunctional life that I was used to. And my dad gets out of jail and, mom goes with another guy. And, I started living with my dad. And my dad started raising my sister, which wasn't biologically his daughter as well. And it was just rough. My dad was in an addiction. Granted, he was a good father. He put food on the table. He worked a 9-to-5 construction business. He could build anything. I remember he built me, go pads. He would build me bunk beds. Like, he was a good dad by any means, but financially it was tough. I was, the type that every Christmas I was praying for a dirt bike and never got one, so as I grew up, I was more curious about, things. So I started smoking pot, the progressive of addiction. And I remember, one time we were going up on a road trip and he had this big igloo cooler, right? And I remember him pulling off the side of the road and sticking his head in the igloo cooler to try to keep himself awake. And that was what I remember growing up with my father. And looking back now, it was because he was nodding out, trying to keep himself awake on a road trip. So, I lived with him. And then, through my addiction, I started to progress to Xanax. I remember being in school, taking Xanax just to go to school because I was overweight. I felt less than. Early on, I look back and there's a lot of things that stemmed to my addiction with self-esteem, feeling less than. So I always had to self-medicate early on.
Was the Xanax in school in high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you're in high school doing Xanax, drinking,
well, actually,
smoking pot.
It started from middle school and then it progressed to high school.
Wow.
And that's how I had to live my life. I would go to school and, I'd get made fun of because I was fat. I went to a prominently black school. And it was just tough, man, dealing with myself. I was happy with myself. And I had an older sister who was from a different father. And, she ended up taking her life, right? And that bothered me too, So this was like the outlook I had on life was just all dysfunctional, right? I used to have friends in school that had lived a normal life and, came to school in a Mercedes, getting dropped off by their parents. That wasn't my life, And it was always dysfunctional. If I looked left or I looked right, it was dysfunctional. Mom wasn't really in the picture. My mom's a great mom, but she just wasn't in the picture growing up early. My dad's raising her daughter because it wasn't biologically his. I remember, we would go to Publix and he would get a gallon of lemonade, Publix brand, and he would cut it and make 4 gallons. That was the type of life that I was used to. Drinking hamburger or eating Hamburger Helper, 5 nights a week. Back when McDonald's had 39-cent cheeseburgers. So it was poor lifestyle.
I love Hamburger Helper.
Yeah, me too. it wasn't bad, but, just looking back, I was like, that's the life that I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just progressed. So, getting on with, my addiction as far as, being in middle school on Xanax, then I would get kicked out of high school and then I would go to, external suspension. And, I ended up getting kicked out of school prominently forever. And that's where my addiction really progressed. So my dad ended up moving from Dania to Davie. Davie's, a very low class, neighborhood. And, I moved in with my uncles. So it was three of my uncles. So it was my dad, my Uncle Robert, and my Uncle Wayne, and all 3 of them doctor shop. This is back in 2010 where you could go to multiple doctors. And you would go to one doctor in Miami, you would see a pharmacy in Miami, you would go to one doctor in Broward, see a pharmacy in Broward, and one in West Palm, and that's how you would beat the system. This is before they red flagged everything. Um,
You're 16 at this
yeah,
point.
16.
2010, you're around 16 years old.
16.
Really quick, just to backtrack a quick second, you got kicked out of school. What did you get kicked out of school for?
Just for being too old, not being defiant, right?
Yeah.
I'm always on Xanax, class clown.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, my objective to go to school was just to get out of the house. It wasn't to try to take school to go to college or anything.
Did you subconsciously get kicked out of school, maybe on purpose? Like if you were being a class clown and acting out because you had issues with, being overweight and,
I don't think
potentially-
purposely, no.
Okay.
I think it was just from my actions.
Mhm.
They just got fed up and, they're like, look, you're 16 and, you're in 8th grade and, you're too old to be here. So then that's when I went to, it's like an alternative high school.
Mhm.
I went to Hollandale Adult, and then I was there doing the same thing. So, when I left from middle school, I brought to high school.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to be there anyways. Addiction was already in me. And, my dad, like I said, he was going to the doctor. So if I was at school, then when he would get home from the doctor, I'm missing, Christmas time with the pills,
Yeah.
So, it came to a point where I'm just living in this house with my uncles. My sister had a kid. She moved on, got a boyfriend. She's living her separate life, but I'm still with my dad. Sister's 2 years older. She started living her life. So I'm in this house with my 3 uncles, and each of my uncles are going to a doctor 2-3 times a week, and my dad's going 2-3 times a week. So, bro, the pills are endless.
What kind of pills were they getting?
They were getting the Oxys.
Oxy 80s?
Yep. Oxy 30s, methadone, Loratabs, Xanax. And that was just my life, man. My Uncle Robert, he had a tough time with the Xanax. So with him, I would pray, I would sit around him, and he would take Oxys and Xanax together, and he would go into like a Xanax escapade where he didn't know what he was doing. He would drop his pills. So I'm 16 running around with 100 Oxys in my pocket, and at the time they're going for $20 a piece. So that's just what I was used to, bro. Like I didn't know any other life. And then the neighborhood I was in, man, like everybody's buying pills, everybody's doing drugs. Like there was no success stories in my neighborhood, man.
Mm.
And that's just what I it's all I knew, it's all I kept doing. And then one of my buddies came over, and he was like, hey, I'll trade you some crack cocaine for a pill. I didn't know nothing about crack. I was against crack. I remember seeing friends growing up smoking it, itching their neck, selling our things. I didn't want nothing to do with it. But as an addict, man, a lot of times we don't have no defense. We don't say no.
Mhm.
So
It's something new too.
yeah. So I took a hit of that, man, and it blasted off from there. I had a whole new addiction. Now I'm selling my pills to get crack, and it just got bad. And then I remember, Davy Road, there was a main Davy Road, and we used to call that the stroll. Like that's where we'd go up. We'd wait for, dudes to come by that wanted to get hookers or that wanted drugs, and you can get them their drugs and short them, or, whatever, make your little profit, make your ends meet. And I remember being uptown, and this girl came up to me, and she ended up being my girl but later down the road comes up to me, and she was like, hey, if you stick by my side, you don't got to worry about nothing. And I didn't even really know what she meant at the time. I'm like, all right. So we end up going to a liquor store, get a bottle of liquor, and I'm like 17 at the time. She's paying for the liquor, and I'm like, maybe if I put my arms around her waist while she's at the counter paying for the bottle, if I can get past that, I know I got her. So I did that. She didn't move my hands. I'm like, all right, I got her. Come to find out that she was, a stripper, right? So I'm 17. I've never even been to a strip club, let alone have a stripper as a girl. So she tells me her life story, and she's a stripper, and, she's a drug addict, right? Doing blues, but she had early addiction, had smoked crack, but at this time I'm full blown in my crack addiction. So she had pills, and she gave me some pills, and I'm like, hey, I smoke crack, and I got her to start smoking crack again. And, I go to this apartment with her because she's like, come to this apartment with me. She told me that she was a stripper. I didn't know what a prostitute was at the time,
Mhm.
because I just was too young. And I go to this house with her, and, she's like, hey, sit in the living room. I'm going to be back. She goes in the back room, comes out with a pocket full of money. And I'm like, what'd you just do? And she's like, I had to bust a lick. I'm like, what's a lick? She's like, did some sexual things for some money. I'm like, all right, you ain't got to tell me twice. And looking back now, it was like, bro, like, that's all I needed to know. I didn't have to commit crimes. I didn't have to rob. I had a walking ATM, right? And I lived my life with her for the next 2 years in my dad's efficiency. My dad's still working. He would go to work. She was street walking. She would work at the strip club, early in the morning. Then at nighttime, off shift, she would walk the streets and get licks and sell her body for money. Um, and then I remember, the cops started getting tough. So she comes home one day. She's like, hey, babe, I'm going to go work for an escort agency. It's a little bit more safer. I'm like, okay, not a problem. She's like, but don't worry. I'm going to make sure you're okay. When I leave at work at 6, I'll give you a couple blues, give you a pack of cigarettes. You'll be all right. And this is my dad's efficiency. So 8 o'clock at night, I'm laying back with my dad in the efficiency. His bed's this is probably a 12 by 12 room. His bed's on one side, my bed's on one side, but I got my girl living in there with us. She would leave at 6. She would come home at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and she would wake me up, and she would call me daddy. This girl was 28 and I'm 17. She would be like, daddy, wake up. I'd wake up. She'd have a pocket full of crack, pocket full of pills and money. And I was like, bro, this is what life's about. Like, I didn't know, having a job, going to college, raising children, like, this was just my life, right? Because going back, from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up, that's what I was used to. So now I'm 17, 18, 19. This is normal to me. I would wake up in the morning, I'd see a dude washing his truck. That's not normal to me. But being in a Walmart bathroom at 3 o'clock in the morning, coked out of my mind, watching porn, that's normal to me. And that's how my sponsor always says, the false reception of reality. And that's what I had. I had a false reception of reality. I couldn't see life on life's terms. And finally, it got so bad where my dad comes up to me and he's like, hey, listen, he's like, I can't watch you be wrapped around this girl's finger no more. He goes, I'm going to park my van in the back of the house. You guys can have the efficiency. He's like, I'm going to, go to work. You guys can have it. When you're evicted, you're evicted. Tough love. So I remember, bro, it was just like the last 2 months in there, knowing my dad's not sleeping in there no more. And I'm, getting high with this female, and she's prostituting. And, and then I remember we finally got evicted. And this is where like life went downhill, was being homeless, right?
What year is this?
This is 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, 2012. And I'm like, her name was Crystal. I'm like, where are we gonna go? My dad's kicking us out. You're tricking. I ain't got no job. What are we gonna do? So she's like, I don't know. So bro, we packed a couple suitcases of what we could fit, and we started walking down the road. And I remember a couple of my buddies lived under a bridge, Davy Road Bridge. I'm like, maybe let's go check out, see what they're doing down there. So I go down there, bro. Under that bridge became my life for the next 2 years. Living under a bridge, bro. And the stories and the events that unfolded under that bridge, bro, you tell them to an average person, they would think it's crazy, just one of them, man, being under there late night. And I remember I had a buddy, and he went to jail for a couple weeks, and he got out of jail. Most people, when they get out of jail, they find God, they call it jailhouse, religion. He comes out, and I remember him telling me, and I look back at it now, and this was God talking to me. This is how, I'm not going to say I believe in, Jesus Christ or any of that. But my God talks to me in different ways. And I remember him telling me one night, and he was about to get high with us, but still God will talk. And he's like, Alan, he goes, I just wanted to let you know. He goes, I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. He's like, this is not your life, bro. He's like, God's got a plan for you. He's like, and it's definitely not living under a bridge, bro. It's definitely not having a needle in your arm or a crack pipe in your mouth. Like, this is not life. And, I didn't really want to hear it. I'm in my addiction. I got money. I got the girl that's
Of course
tricking.
not.
I don't want to hear none of that. I'm like, okay. I'm like, but anyways, by the way, you want to get high with us tonight? He's like, yeah. So we go under the bridge. We went and copped some dope wherever we went. We go back under the bridge because this is a big bridge, man. We had cardboard dividers under there. We had beds under there. We had fans. You had the water at the bottom if you needed to wash your shirt, or if you even needed to pull up some water in your needle, whatever, bro. Like, that was just what our life was for 2 years, man. And he came under the bridge, and the kid, his name's Ryan. He's gone now. He came under the bridge with us. and he got high. And I remember me and her, the girl Chris, we had to leave, and she had to go bust a lick, go sell herself. So we leave and we come back. When I left with her, the kid Ryan was up against the wall, kind of how I'm sitting on this chair, but under the bridge. We come back 2 hours later and he's sitting in that same position. And I'm like, hey, why don't you go check on Ryan? She goes, checks on him. She's like, he's dead. And bro, you would think like that would affect you as a human being. Bro, it didn't affect none of us. Like, the 6 people that were under there were like, fuck, Ryan's gone. We're like, what are we gonna do now? Because we got a bunch of drugs under here. Like, what are we gonna do? Not me, but another person associated that I was with, bro, pushed him into the water. Like, that's the type of people that I surrounded myself around. And then we went about a quarter mile down the road, and one of the dudes that did it, he got a guilty conscience, so he made a phone call, anonymous tip, and he's like, hey, there's a dude overdosed, he fell in the water. You know, that's the type of people I hung out with. That was the lifestyle I had. And I lived under that bridge for another 2 years after that event. Same kind of stories, not going to go into much war stories, but just, similar stories, being under a bridge, getting high.
Hey guys, quick update. Every Monday night, I host the Rise Above Recovery meeting. It's an open meeting for any addiction, alcohol, drugs, gambling, food, whatever you're struggling with, you're welcome here. To get the meeting link and weekly updates, just email me at kevin@riseabovepod.com and I'll add you to the list. Also, if this podcast has helped you, please like, subscribe, or leave a rating. It helps us continue to spread the message of hope. Lastly, if you'd like to go even deeper with Rise Above, check out our Patreon. Supporters get access to live interviews and can chat with guests after the interview. Thank you. During that time under the bridge, what was one of the most, I know you had said you guys were just like, okay, Ryan's gone, move on with life. It was something that happened and it was just normal to you.
Mhm.
What was there any situation that happened while you were living under the bridge where it stopped you for a second and you were like, whoa?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember my girl never touched a needle in her life. And this is another girl, by the way. I learned that I would surround myself around weak-minded women that had either daddy issues or security issues or just outright wanted to get high and would sell themselves. So that's the type of women I got with. This is another girl. She didn't touch needles. I did. Um, I wasn't around my buddy. He was using needles and he went under the bridge and he hung out with her while I wasn't there. Kind of got me mad. He ended up shooting her up with some fentanyl and she almost died. Right. And I went under the bridge and I found her and I literally had to pull her out from under the bridge. And bro, I've seen multiple people overdose, but when you love somebody, it's a little different. It's a lot harder. And bro, I was crying my eyes out, like crying my eyes out. I called the paramedics. I said, "You need to get here. She's dying." And this is probably like the 8th person that has died or overdosed under this bridge. Um, so the paramedics came, bro, and I'm screaming. They're like, "Do CPR." I say, I'm screaming. I said, "I don't know how to do CPR. You guys need to do your job." Um, and they did, right? And they took her in the ambulance that night out of just depression and looking around, and bro, and I didn't have no one to turn to. I went under the bridge and the same dope that she died on. I went under the bridge and I was like, you know what, this is where it's gonna end. And I shot that same dope. And it knocked me on my ass, right? But it didn't kill me. And I woke up the next morning alive, right? It was probably like a 6 hour, overdose. I don't know if I overdosed or I was just sleeping, but it was some strong dope. It almost killed her. And I did the same thing because I was tired of living that way. And I woke up in the morning and I was alive. And I remember saying a prayer to God and asking God, like, why do you keep waking me up? Like you're like all these people are dying around me, but why do you keep waking me up? What's the point of you keep waking me up? And now with sobriety, I look back, he had a purpose on my life, but I couldn't see it then. So my dad gives me a call one day and he's like, hey, I moved, I'm in Sunrise University. I got on this new medication. It's called methadone. You should get on it, leave Davey alone, leave the girl. So that's what I did. I jumped ship and I went to a new city, Sunrise, and I got on methadone, man. I started doing methadone and it started working. And then, I have OCD over everything. So anything I do, I manifest it. I I can't get enough of it. So I'm on the internet and I'm trying to find out what's the best recovery. And I found an article that said that MAT, which is, medication assisted therapy or treatment with therapy is the best, form of recovery there is. Granted, that's not the truth, right? Now I know that, God and a higher power and AA or NA, whatever your fellowship is,
Abstinence, yeah.
but, I believed it. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to get on this methadone. I'm going to do therapy. And then I remember coming out of the clinic one day because I would have to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning. They were only open so many hours. I'm like, I remember thinking like, this is the best thing next to, sliced bread. Like, I don't have to, call nobody. I don't have to worry about him having a different product. It's the same thing. I know what I'm getting. It's pharmacy grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember coming out of the pharmacy and this kid was like, hey, you want to buy Xanax? And I remember having Xanax, early on in my life, but I left him alone for many years. And he's like, it's hillbilly heroin, you mix the Xanax with the methadone, it's a good buzz. I'm like, sure, there it is again. No defense against the first drink or drug. And I take a Xanax and I fell in love. Like the methadone wouldn't get you high, but you mix with the Xanax and it would. And bro, like I had an escapade for 2 years straight on Xanax and methadone, bro. Robberies, burglaries, living with prostitutes, crack houses, whatever. And bro, like I couldn't see a way out of life, bro. I couldn't see getting out of addiction. Like I had no health insurance, I remember multiple times, man, trying to like, Baker act myself. There was a hospital in Broward called Fort Lauderdale Hospital. And you could go in there and tell them you want to kill yourself. And, you tell them you're on fentanyl or heroin and they would give you Suboxone. But it was only 3 days and it wasn't long enough because it was state funded. It was free. I remember doing that multiple times and getting out and trying to go to AA or NA, whatever. And, just giving up on myself, never giving myself a chance. And I remember the last time I tried to Baker Act myself there, they said, you've reached a protocol. You can't continue to keep coming here. If you want to kill yourself, go to Broward General, which was the next hospital over. They didn't have a detox unit. So, of course, I'm not going there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go back to addiction. Like, this is God's answer. Tell me just keep doing what I'm doing. And I would just keep doing what I was doing, man. And what I started to notice is the crimes would get worse. Like, I would, car hop at nighttime. And then, I got on Xanax and then I'm committing crimes I don't even know I'm committing.
Forgetting on the
Yeah.
Xanax,
I
yep.
remember I broke into this store. I've already got charged for it, so it doesn't matter. I broke into this store and, I stole like, there were like police outfits, like police pants and like joggers. And looking back now, like, why did I need that? But that's just the insanity of the addiction. And I ended up going to jail and I got it. And I was in jail for like 8 months, man. And I found God and I was like, I put on weight, I'm working out, I'm reading books. And
You
I'm
weren't
like,
using in jail.
no, I had 8 months sober, man. I
Wow.
put like my using weight was like 150 pounds. When I got out of jail, I was 245. Like put on almost 100 pounds.
What year was this?
This is 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
2017.
And I found God, bro. And I remember sitting in my cell reading this book. I forget who the author was, but it was just like about spirituality, recovery, spirituality. And I remember having such a sense of freedom and peace sitting in a jail cell, bro. I was like, I don't care that I'm in jail, bro. Like, I'm not out there with the ruckus of life. Like, you would ask someone that had a 9 to 5 and had a family, they'd be like, I need to get out of jail. But I didn't care because it was like a break to me. Like my addiction was like having 2 jobs. In jail, I had no responsibility. I got fed, I could play cards. I actually met sober people. We would, watch TV. It was like, it kind of felt like a normal life. It was weird.
It's funny you say that because I have a lot of guests that come on here and, they're using hard in the streets.
Mhm.
In the hustle every day. You got to wake up, you got to find out how to make a couple $100 so that you could get high every day.
Right.
And then they go to jail or prison and they're like,
Yeah,
relief.
absolutely.
Because it's a structured day. You're fed and you go through the detox, you get through the detox, and then you start to kind of rehabilitate back to life. You put the weight on, you're working out, endorphins going, you feel good. It's just structured day.
Right.
And it's crazy because left to our own devices, right? Our thinking and the way we want to operate It's the hustle, the exhausting lifestyle of using drugs.
Right.
And then once a little bit of structure is put into our life, which I feel like when we get sober, we learn that structure. We're taught that structure through sponsorship, through meetings, through the people at the meetings. And we have a community that we can rely on to learn how to stay sober or get sober and stay sober.
Right.
But like, I feel like before all of this, right, when we are in the act of addiction, we don't know it. We don't have the community. We don't have that sense of camaraderie. And we're just kind of all alone. You know, you had that girl who was your running buddy, the 28-year-old,
Right.
and you guys were kind of co-signing one another
Yeah.
and enabling one another.
All the way. Yeah.
So
That's one of the biggest things for me is unity. Like without you and I, there's no unity, right? And that's something I never had when I remember like my slogan was I'm a lone soldier, like it's just me against the world, like listen to Tupac songs, like, just me against the world. Like I don't need nobody, man. It's me and whatever female I'm with, and that's it. But I remember sitting in jail, man, and I found God, and I was like, I'm gonna get out, and I'm gonna take over the world. I'm gonna get a good job. I'm gonna be a Christian. I'm gonna try to be a pastor. And bro, without a doubt, the same night I got out of jail, after 8 months, I was sitting in a tent smoking crack, asking myself, how did I get here again? Because I had no substance or no foundation in my life for recovery. Um, but I heard a saying, that one good thing about rock bottom is you have a foundation to build on. And that's like what I believe, right? I had to really hit bottom to be able to build my life up. So I remember being at a bus terminal, and once again, this is how God works in my life. This guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, he had a iPad around his neck. He's like, "Hey, I'll sign you up for some health insurance, and I'll give you $5." I'm like, "All right, that's a pack of cigarettes. I don't need health insurance, but I need the $5."
mm-hmm.
So I sign up for the health insurance. He's like, "What address do you want it mailed to your card?" And like, send it to my aunt's house in Davie. I wasn't even staying in Davie. I'm staying on the streets with my dad, sleeping in bushes and tents, and that was just my life. Going to methadone clinic, going nowhere, and my dad would go to Davie once a month and get the mail from my aunt's house. So I remember he got mail one day and he comes back and he's like, "Hey, you have this mail over at Patty's house." So I look, it's an insurance card. I'm like, "All right, hold it down," because I'm always losing everything. So I would have him hold my, important stuff. And but I just remember like maybe 6 months after that, event of him finding the health insurance card in the mail, just life was just getting rough, bro. Like it was like, I'm with a girl that I really don't even want to be with anymore. Um, you know, I'm buying dope from drug dealers and it's not even getting me well anymore. It wasn't even about getting high, it was just about being well. I'm panhandling. That was my hustle, was panhandling. I'm panhandling from literally 7 o'clock in the morning to midnight. Like literally, like I would, like you probably don't know many panhandlers that would panhandle until midnight. I would. It was so bad where I wouldn't shower for 3-4 months. I'd wear the same black shirt where between the sun and the sweat it would turn brown and white. And I just didn't care, bro. Like I remember getting on buses and people would like shun you because you stink so bad, and bro, I had no self-esteem, no care. Like, to me, like as long as I had the next fix and maybe a cheeseburger and a pack of cigarettes, I was all right. Like I didn't need clothes, I didn't need hygiene, I didn't need anything. That's how like beaten I was and hopeless I was. Um, and on top of that, like, spending all my money after panhandling all day and, still not being able to get well. I was like, you know what? I told my dad, I said, "Can I borrow your phone?" Because I didn't even have a phone. I'm like, "I'm going to look up some treatment centers. Matter of fact, give me that insurance card that you have in your wallet." And he gives me an insurance card. And I take the insurance card and, I start calling these different rehabs. And they're like, do you have a deductible? Do you have, 1,000 or 13? And I was honest with him. I said, "I don't even have enough money to buy me another bag of dope to get off dope sick, let alone give you guys money." And, they're like, "Well, we can't really help you, da da da." And I called, probably like 8 or 10 or 12 more of them. And one was like, "We'll get back to you." And bro, I remember like getting off the phone just hopeless. Like, bro, I came in like with insurance, get myself out of this lifestyle. And I remember, bro, I was getting high, the rest of the day. And the next morning, my dad's like, hey, my dad came and found me. He's like, one of them rehabs called me back. And at this point now, I kind of don't even really want to go anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like,
The
whatever.
window is closing.
Yeah, the window's closing. I'm like, whatever. Let me see what they're talking about. So they're like, hey, listen. They're like, you called for detox. They're like, if you agree to detox, residential, PHP, and IOP, you agree to do the whole program, that $1,400 deductible, we'll put it on the back end. So we'll Uber you here and let you walk in the door without a dollar to your name with just your insurance. I'm like, all right. I send the Uber at 10 o'clock. That way I had the rest of the day to get high. Now I'm trying to go out with a bang. I remember, being behind the gas station my dad lived at, because my dad lived at a gas station and he would do work around there. And, I lived in a tent down the street. So I'd come meet him up at the gas station, see what he's doing, or he would check on me in my tent. That was like the last two years of my addiction, of how my life went. And so I was behind the gas station. I missed the Uber for the rehab. I remember waking up, bro, like I had this escapade from, fentanyl. I guess you call them overdoses, because I would do them and I would nod out, for 3-4 hours. I remember waking up crying, bro, because I really wanted to get out of this lifestyle. I was like, bro, I just missed my Uber. And my dad's like, I'll call him, calm down. So my dad called him. By the grace of God, they sent another Uber. I didn't know they would probably send 5 Ubers because they're getting insurance money for it. But I didn't know about rehab and stuff. So they sent the next Uber, and I got an Uber, and I got to detox, man. And I went to a rehab up here in West Palm. And
what year is this?
This is 2023.
Okay, got it.
2023. And I remember walking in the door of the rehab, and bro, I've never had insurance. I went to psych hospitals and stuff. I was like, bro, this place is nice. Like, bro, it felt like I was at like a resort, And I walk in, they give me an outfit, they change my clothes. They're like, we got this, closet over here that's got donation clothes. They're like, the cafeteria is open, they got cereal, milk. They're like, in the morning, we're gonna give you meds. Like, hell yeah, bro. I had my own room, two beds in there. I had a roommate. Both of us had our own TV, hot shower. I'm like, hell yeah. But even though I liked it, I was like, I'm only gonna stay here for an oil change. When that oil change light comes on, only for the oil change. I'm not staying here for the long haul. I just want to, knock down my tolerance a little bit, get the addiction out of the way. That way I can go back out and use how I want to use. But they used to have these meetings, these NA meetings and AA meetings in the back underneath the pool area. And I remember, I would look, because I was dope sick as hell. And I remember smoking a cigarette under a little tiki hut, and I would look and I'd see the meetings going on. And I wanted to go, but I was too dope sick to even walk. And then finally, like the next day, I got a little bit of energy. This is like on day 3 after they give me my Suboxone and my Ativan taper. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go over there. And I went over there, man, and I'm sitting with all these people. And these people are in like PHP, IOP. They already got their energy back. They're working out. I'm like looking at them like, damn, I'm jealous. Like, I wish I had your guys' energy, They're happy. They're giggly. And I'm like, man, like, that's what I want, bro. Like, that's what I want. So I would just thug it through the meeting, like dope sick, bro, shaking, cold, and just listen to the message, bro. And like, I'm like, and I would meditate just on the message of the speaker, And then I would go back over to detox, because they kept detox separate, but you could still go to the meetings. And I remember like day 5, the lady comes up to me and she's like, hey, they're going to be moving you to residential in a couple of days. And bro, something clicked at that moment where I got that white light of gift of desperation. I was like, let me see if maybe I can do this. Like, let me give myself a chance, And that's what I did, bro. I was like, I'm going to do residential. I'm going to do PHP, and I'm going to do IOP. And I did it, bro. And I completed it. I did everything thoroughly. I went to groups. I did all my homework. I worked out, bro. I even ran the meetings in the back with the big book, and the AA meetings I took, because the guy left. I was like, you know what? I'll step up to the plate and I'll run the meetings.
So you started doing service?
Yeah, I started doing service in rehab, man. This guy Jimmy, he would do like movie night and popcorn night, and I would help him with setting up the TV. Bro, I was like the teacher's pet in rehab. Like I just I just did everything, bro, and I loved it because I didn't know that way of life.
You had a purpose.
Yeah,
You started to build purpose in your life.
exactly, bro. And I never knew what purpose felt like.
Yeah.
So I remember on the meetings, but I remember people making comments, out of jealousy and animosity, like, "Oh, this don't matter when you're in here. It matters when you get out in the real world. When the rubber hits the road." I'm like, you know what? And if you asked me at that time, I honestly say like maybe one of them would have made it before me. Even though I'm running everything, I still had no belief in myself.
Mhm.
Um, but I got my counselor. It was like, 61 days I was in there, and she's like, "Hey, we got these halfways, they're in West Palm, but none of the ones in West Palm would accept me with no money. I had no money. My dad was beat up. She's like, there's one in Broward that'll take you. It's marijuana maintenance. You don't have to smoke weed, but you can go there. He'll take you with no rent as long as you get a job in the first week." I'm like, all right. Now, backtracking, before I went to rehab one night, my dad was drunk and he was crying to me. And he was like, "Alan," he's like, "this is not the life I want you to live." He's like, "I want you to have like a life of purpose." He's like, "I want you to worry about your future." He's like, "Look at me." He's like, "I have no future." He's like, "I have no retirement. When I die, I have no money for you." He was on disability, could barely, he had herniated disc, could barely walk. And I remember telling him, bro, I was like, "Dad, I'll be sober when you die, though. Just know that." And then, back to being in rehab. So I'm in rehab and I get out and I go to this halfway in Broward. I counted my clean time in rehab. So I had 62 days. And I remember taking pictures. I met up with my mom, this guy named Brian on TikTok, who I don't even know. Him and his recovery group got me a bunch of clothes because my mom was on TikTok during the pandemic. So she grew a lot of fans and people on TikTok. And he bought me a lot of clothes. And my mom's like, "Maybe you should try this TikTok thing." I didn't know about TikTok. I'm like, "Okay, I'll try it." Um, and I went on there and I reached out to the dude, Brian. I said, "Thank you for buying me clothes, man." And he's like, "As long as you're doing the right thing." And just seeing like the recovery community on TikTok, I was like, bro, like there is help out there if you want it.
Mhm.
And I got a job selling insurance, at the halfway, and I wasn't really good at it. And then I was on Facebook and I met who today is my baby mom. And she was like, I remember hitting her with a phrase. I'm like, "You look familiar." She didn't look familiar. I was just like, that's a catchphrase to get her to try to talk to me. And so she's like, "Yeah, you do too." And we kick it off and we started FaceTiming and bro, she's like, I was telling her about my job. She's like, "Come up here, you can work with me. I sell vacations." And I'm already in sales, but I'm not good at insurance. I'm like, let me come up here. And I came up here, bro, and we kicked it off. And I remember, I was riding the tri-bro up here, to go to work, and we would hang out after work. And then my mom, I was living with my mom because I left the halfway, by the way. My mom let me move back in, and I don't think her girlfriend that she was, because my mom's, lesbian. I don't think her girlfriend liked the fact that your son's 31 years old, he's living under a roof, and he's not, coming home at night, he's hanging out with this girl, you know. So they told me I had to go. I don't think it was my mom, I think it was the wife.
Mhm.
So I told my baby mom, I'm like, "Hey, I have to leave my mom's. I have to find a place up there in West Palm." She's like, "Call Oxford." So I called Oxford and I found a place to live. And I moved into Oxford. And me and her started kicking it off. She lived in Oxford. She ended up moving into the girls' Oxford right down the street. And like life was good, bro. Like we would go to work. She lived down the street. I remember like 5 o'clock in the morning, I would sneak her into my Oxford and she would lay in bed with me. And we would get up together, we would eat breakfast, we would go to work. And bro, like life was good. Like I started having recovery, but not true recovery because I wasn't working steps. I didn't have a sponsor.
Mm.
Um, and we just sponsored each other, bro. Like that's what my life was, like retail therapy, sex, money and work. Then I got a job in treatment and I became a behavioral health technician because I wasn't good at selling vacations and I started working in treatment. And at the time you asked me if I got a job in treatment if you would have asked me, I would have said that really help people, right? But now, after doing step work after the fact, I got a job in treatment for ego to say that I work in treatment. Look at me when I go to meetings. And I worked in treatment and, I was going to the gym, working in treatment. Our relationship was good. I started doing things, going to Halloween horror nights, going to events, just things that I never did, bro. And I was like, this is what people used to tell me life was about. Because in my addiction, I thought like God made drug addicts, he made lawyers, he made doctors. Somebody has to play the role of being a drug addict. And I just thought that was gonna be my life. But, and that's on hindsight. But now, living a normal life, I was like, there's so much more to life than drugs, right? It's like I'm never gonna go back to addiction. I'm never gonna go back to drugs. I'm gonna no alcohol. I'm just gonna live life on life's terms. Because I used to hear the cliche sayings at meetings, but I never applied the principles to my life. Um, and I ended up, I was working in treatment and I ended up getting a tax return from one of the clients that worked there. He was like, hey, I can get you set up on a tax return. I'll get you $5,000. Get me $2,000 back. You can keep $3,000. And I did that. And I was like, this is bullshit. I'm not going to get the money back. And bigger than shit, 2 weeks later, I got $3,000 check or $5,000 check. Met the dude at Amscott, gave him $2,000. My girl was at work because we worked different shifts. She sold vacations. I worked in treatment. I worked overnight. She worked during the day. So I got $3,000 back and I'm sitting at home. I haven't had this much money sober. And my girl's not around. No one's around, no roommates. And I called a drug dealer, bro, without even thinking, without even putting any effort into it. I called a drug dealer and I was like, hey, it's me. Can you bring me some drugs to West Palm? He was from Broward. He did.
How
That
long had you been sober at this point?
9 months.
You were sober 9 months, and then you got the money, and then the urge just hit you. The
Instant.
thought just popped into your head, and you acted on it.
Instant, without even thinking about it.
Was it like cruise control almost?
100%.
Okay, and you remembered your drug dealer's number.
Yeah, that was
I feel like we all remember our drug dealer's number.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yep.
And I called him and he brung the drugs but at that time you asked me and I would tell you, I'm just going to get high for the night.
Ooh.
Just going to get high for the night.
I've been there.
And bro, I couldn't leave that hotel room. 2 weeks later, fast forward, 5 overdoses, 4 different hotels. Girl left me, went back to halfway because she didn't want to go back to prison. She was on probation. And here I am on the side of the road holding a cardboard sign. And literally 2 weeks ago, I had a full-time job working as a behavioral health technician, going to the gym 5 days a week, going to meetings, doing events, had money in the bank account, getting ready to buy a car, getting ready to rent an apartment. 2 weeks, I'm homeless, flying a sign. That's what my addiction does. It brings me to my knees, right? I tell people all the time, you put a needle in my arm, it puts me on a cardboard box. And that's just what it does. I know today that I can't successfully use drugs and alcohol. And I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day and I said, you know what keeps me from getting high? It's because I like it too much. I thought because I liked it so much, I had to do it. Now that's what keeps me away from it. I know as being a man, I like it too much to do it. Because if I do it, I know it's going to take over my life.
Mm-hmm.
So that event, we relapsed. And I ended up getting into another halfway, and it was my buddy's dad owned the halfway, and I was using in the halfway because my girl went to the other halfway. I couldn't get sober. I'm using, and I remember, I lost a job at the treatment center, and he owned a phone room selling vacations, back to vacations, and he just opened it under one of our other buddies, and I go in there, and I was high that day. He's full-blown recovery, bro. And so is his boy, which later became my sponsor. They called me in the back of the garage because the way he had his phone room set up, it used to be his construction room floor where he would like bring people in to look at cabinets. And so he turned that into a phone room and then it had a garage in the back. And he brought me in the garage in the back. And he's like, hey, you want to tell us something? And I'm like, yeah, I'm high. He's like, bro, you're living at my dad's halfway. You're painting this image that you've been in recovery and you're, twacked out of your mind right now on Fetty. And I tried to deny it, bro. And he knew. He let me finish the day. And then that day was our home group in Delray. And he's like, all right, so, I'm going to still let you go to the meeting. And I remember being in the truck and going there. And it was like 4 of us in the truck. And we're on the highway and he turned the radio down. And he looked at me through the rear view, and he's like, bro, like, what, like, what is it going to take? And I'm like, and this is calling me out in front of 4 other dudes in recovery. And bro, I just broke down in tears. I'm like, I don't know what it's going to take, bro. Like, I don't know. I said, I've tried. I don't know what to do. He's like, listen, this is what we're going to do. He's like, you're going to go to this meeting. You're going to pay attention. You're going to raise your hand in our home group and you're going to let them know where you're at today. And I did that, bro. And I said, I just relapsed. This is where I'm at. He's like, after you're going to have about 7 brothers, come up to you and talk you in a detox. And that's what they did, bro. And I tried to talk my way out of it. I was like, it was just one night, And they're like, listen, what do you, like, this is like 6 dudes, all with multiple years in recovery. They're like, the job's not going nowhere. The dope dealer's not going nowhere. Not, if you go, there one dude's like, if you go to treatment and you get out and you still want to get high, I'll buy your first bag. Like, because he knew I wouldn't, when I got out. And I try to make excuses, the job, the girl. They're like, bro, none of that shit mattered when you were getting high. Like, go to detox. Go to detox, we'll help you. And bro, I ended up going to detox and I got out. And he was like, my boy that called me on my shit, that owned the office, he's like, hey, he's like, so now you went to detox. I got out. I'm living at another halfway, a good one. And he's like, what I want you to do is I want you to reach out to my boy Rob, right? I want you to reach out to Rob. And I want you to do everything that Rob tells you to do, right? He's like, Alan. He looks back at me. He's like, we're in the truck going to work. He's like, bro, I got 3 years sober. He's like, I promise you, if you give AA your life for the first year, it'll give you a life beyond your wildest dreams. He's like, bro, I'm 26 years old. He's like, I'm successful. I got a business. He's like, you see me take my 3-year-old daughter to to daycare every morning. You see, I just opened a phone room. You see, like, I always got money in my pocket, not to brag, just to show you what you can have. And he was like, so do everything Rob tells you to do. So I called Rob. I'm like, hey, Rob, will you sponsor me? He's like, yeah, Um, and he's like, we're going to start steps immediately. So, we got into step 1, and he asked me some qualifying questions. Like, absolutely, I'm powerless, I can't stop. And, once I start, there's never enough, Then I did 2 and 3. And he's like, all right, now it's time to give it over to God. And I gave it over to God, bro, because I always believed in God. I just had a problem trusting God, So I gave my life over to God, bro, of my own understanding, not like, Buddhist, Muslim, just my own understanding.
Yeah,
Right?
it's not a religious
Not
program.
at all.
For the listeners, the viewers, we're not talking religion. It's just something spiritually,
Yeah,
like something that you believe in that's going to greater than yourself to help you remove your will in situations.
absolutely.
Um, to help you believe that you can do it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
for me, um it was like as simple as seeing other people around me genuinely smiling and
Yeah,
happy, because I had a big thing when I first got sober. My life's fucking over. My life's over. I can't have fun without drugs and alcohol ever again. I'm just riding out the rest of my life in purgatory, in AKA sobriety,
hmm
because this is going to be lame and there's going to be no high. I was looking for high highs and adrenaline rushes, and it's not going to happen ever. But I was like, you know what? I see people genuinely smiling in meetings, and I was like, if they can be genuinely happy, I could achieve that one day. And
absolutely.
that's what gave me hope in the beginning. As small as that, it
Yeah,
was just that little thing that gave me hope in the beginning. So go ahead.
absolutely. So, so then he's like, we got on to step 4 and he's like, I want you to write down some amends, and some resentments. And bro, like I had so many resentments towards so many people, the law, the judges, the
Oh yeah.
jails,
F everyone.
women. Yeah, bro.
Yep.
And then at the end of step 4, he did a compare and contrast, right? And you know, he did a compare and contrast and he's like, what do you see that fuels every resentment you have? And I was like, myself. He's like, exactly. He's like, whether it be self pity, anger, being a thief, whatever it is, all them, all them resentments stem from yourself. He's like, that's why I had you write this down so you can see that it's not really the other people, it's you, right? And then, and then I did my sex inventory, And I didn't even understand what I was doing, bro. I was just doing everything he told me to do, right? Basically letting go of the wheel, right? And letting him drive the car for a little bit. Letting another human being drive the car. Because obviously I didn't know how to run my own life. Um, and bro, like I did step 5 and we sat down and bro, I just admitted everything to him, like admitted everything to another man, like, and I had just met this dude, like, I've seen him in the rooms. I knew he was solid in recovery. And I admitted everything to him, bro. I admitted, some secret things and bro, it just felt good. And he was like, now what I want you to do is he goes, when I leave, go in your room and sit with yourself for an hour. And I did that, bro. And when I tell you, like, just the presence of spirituality upon me, not no white light, but just the freedom, bro. I never understood the steps. If you could ask me, you would ask me a couple months before doing them, do they work? And I'd tell you no. But bro, they work, right? And I did 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Did 1 through 12, bro. And bro, after doing the steps, like something in me changed, bro. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what it was, but something changed where I wanted to help other people. And I was like, now the fire that I had under my ass to get high, I have under my ass to help somebody. And I was like, when can we get involved in H&Is, bro? And I started doing H&I meetings with him, and I started sharing my meetings or my story in rehabs. And he would be honest with the people. He'd be like, hey, this is my sponsor. He's only got so many months clean, da da da. Because I was like, don't you have to have a year sober? He's like, no, bro. He's like, you just share your experience, strength, and hope. And that's what I did.
H&Is, by the way, H&I is hospitals and institutions. So you're
Yes.
bringing a meeting to people who are in detox, in rehab, just so the listeners understand that.
And so, bro, like I would share my story and rehabs, and I remember like telling them, like, I would be in a meeting, right, and I'd hear these old timers talk about with the 12 steps and God, I have a light beyond my wildest dreams. And I would think, I don't know what the fuck your wildest dreams are, but mine are definitely a lot more wild than being in a meeting on Friday night drinking a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Right? But now looking back on hindsight, what they meant was their freedom to do what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A light beyond my wildest dreams today means that when I leave this studio that I'm going to go to work and I'm going to kiss my baby mother, a kiss, and I'm going to kiss my daughter, right? And I'm going to go to sleep sober tonight, right? A light beyond my wildest dreams means that Monday morning when I wake up, I'll still have money from Friday's check, right? A light beyond my wildest dreams means coming here and sharing, a story that might be able to help somebody.
Yeah.
Like that's what a light beyond my wildest dreams means. Means that I can do things on my own free will. I can get on a plane and I don't have to worry about if there's drugs in that area, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm okay with me, right? I can accept life on life's terms, and I just try to keep helping others, bro. And then I just had a newborn daughter 4 months ago.
Dude,
and
congratulations.
And when I tell you, bro, the experience that has brought to my life, like I never understood love until I had a child. And bro, it's amazing. Other people hear all the time, right? Recovery's got its ups and its downs, bro. It's not easy. Every day is not going to be easy, but I can guarantee you my worst day sober is better than my best day getting high. By a long shot.
It's so much easier.
It's a lot easier, bro.
It's such an easy, manageable way to live. We create the chaos that goes on in our lives. And we were used to chaos for so long and hustling to get money to do this, to get the high highs and then the fucking low lows. And, today, for me, my life is that it's not this anymore. No. It's this. And it took some time for me to get used to that.
Yeah.
And then I found peace. And then I also want to say, you talked about spirituality. Spirituality is being aware, right? Doing the next right thing, helping someone else. It's a combination of all of that. Gratitude, being grateful for what you have. If you're spiritually fit, you're grateful. And it says grateful addicts and alcoholics don't pick up a drink or a drug, right? Because they have that hope.
Right.
And, a common theme or lack of, but then it popped into your story. For so long, you didn't have purpose. And, with purpose comes hope.
Absolutely.
And today, you have a lot of purpose in
Yeah.
your life. And,
Yeah.
congrats again on your 4-month-old.
Yeah.
Just to update the audience too. So she's your girlfriend, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So
Baby mother. Yeah.
baby mother, girlfriend, she is sober
Yeah.
with you today. You guys are together.
Yeah.
She is in sobriety.
She's in sobriety.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. And then you guys got the
She,
4-month-old
yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
And dude, that is so amazing.
Yeah. And today it gives me like responsibility, bro. Not like, I have purpose already with my life, but it gives me responsibility to where like I never, knew what it felt like to have somebody else fully depend on you. Like, bro, like I wake up in the morning, at 12 o'clock I feed her, 3 o'clock I feed her, 6 o'clock I feed. And bro, I'm okay with that. But it is tough too, because at the end of the day, she's a girl, she's 4 months old. I'm not willing to put her in daycare until she can talk. So me and my baby mother both work at the same job. So, bro, I bring my daughter to work 6 days a week,
Mhm.
and it's a sales job. Granted, she's got her own, like, my supervisor lets me put her in her office, and she's got her own little cubby, and she's got a swing, a bouncy in there. She's okay. She's not like on the sales floor with me, but, 3 times a day, I got to go in there and feed her, change her. So I can't make the money I used to make. I used to have a comma in my check every week, where I'm not doing that anymore because I have to tend to my daughter. But that's what it's about, bro. It's about sacrificing. Like at the end of the day, would I sacrifice money, for anything else? Probably not. But for my daughter, I'm willing to go, all the way.
Mhm.
And then it's, the way I look at things in recovery now, it's like, bro, really, I am making $1,000 a week because I'm saving $300 a week by not having to spend it on daycare. So it's just like how I look at my life now, bro. I try
Mhm.
to look at the cup half full, not half empty. Um, and it's just an experience, bro. Like being able to look back on my life of where I came from and look now, and it's like, bro, like I never in a million years would think that I would be where I'm at today. Like, bro, I couldn't even take care of myself, let alone a 4-month-old girl. Like, bro, and I'm sure there was people that would doubt that I would be a good father. And like today, bro, like multiple people in my sales floor, my baby mother, like, another good friend of mine who I rent from, which is a woman, like they're like, Alan, like you're an amazing father. Like, and bro, like not that I'm looking for that validation, but that it definitely feels good when people recognize the good characteristics about yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what I just try to do, bro. Now there's people that I work with that I want to try to help, right? Um, but at the end of the day, I gotta remember too, man, like nobody could help me when I didn't want it, right? And and that's something that bothers me is when you do try to help people and you put in the effort and they're not ready, right? And they either, just take your financials from you. Like for example, like, there's people that I've been wanting to help and like, oh, hey, you need, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna get sober, and I'll be like, okay, like let's get you into treatment. Oh, well, I need, $100 for my rent, and I'll send them $100, or hey, I need clothes before, and then you help them with finances or food or cigarettes or vape, whatever it is they need, and then they don't go. Just like they're using you. And I gotta have understanding that I was that same person, bro.
Mm.
And it's like I was that same dude, so I gotta just understand that when they're ready, they'll be ready. And that's just where I am today. Like my life is like you said, a flat line. Like, there are some days that are harder than others.
Mhm.
But now it's about sharing the message of recovery, right? Letting people know that it's possible. It's about being there for my daughter, right? Because at the end of the day, she's my world.
She's a
Um,
number one.
yeah, number one, man. And like today's, Halloween, I'm gonna dress her up. Like, bro, like that's an experience that I never had, bro.
Mm.
um, and and like, I used to have friends that would be like, oh, I'm gonna go take my daughter to do this or do that. And I'd be like, I would think like, why don't you want to go out with me? Because I didn't understand the love for a daughter or a son. But now it's like I get that, bro. Like I get off work, and I give my daughter a bath, and we lay in bed, and she's got this show called Coco Melon that she
Oh, I
loves.
know Coco Melon. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I put that on for her, and she loves it, bro. And like,
Mhm.
it's just what life's about, man. There's so much more to life than what I ever knew was possible.
Yeah.
And now here I am, like, I'm trying to grow as far as like my level in life, as far as like entrepreneur status, like where I'm so open minded. I watch YouTube videos, and I'm trying to, get things going with the business that I have on the side. And um, with sales, I'm trying to get better in sales because I don't know if vacations is what I'm gonna want to sell for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Maybe I might want to be a real estate agent or a car salesman, or who really knows? Maybe I might be a content creator. I don't know. I don't know
Mhm.
what life has in store for me. But one thing I do know is that I woke up sober today, and I'm gonna, go to bed sober, and I'm gonna kiss my daughter good night, and be sober when I wake up. So that's just, man, like, really, it's just about a whole new perspective on life, bro. Um, I don't know, man. It's a way of life for me.
Yeah. Well, I want to say your story is very powerful. It's very, very powerful. And you defied the odds. You defied the odds today.
Hmm.
And I can't thank you enough for your willingness to come on here and share your story, give people hope, because there really is no excuse. If you want to get sober, you can get sober.
Absolutely,
You found a way to
absolutely,
get sober.
absolutely.
$1,400 to go to this rehab, $1,000 to get into this rehab. And they kept saying no. And
Yeah,
that is a whole nother
yeah,
conversation with
yeah,
with the US and
yeah,
treatment facilities. People should have access to it
yeah.
more.
It's a marketing.
But you found a way. You kept clawing, and yeah, you had the relapse. You had the relapse, whatever. I had a relapse. A lot of people do have relapses, but you made it back.
Right.
And is Tony your sponsor?
No, Rob.
Rob,
Yeah,
Tony's your friend.
yeah,
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 shout out Tony and Rob,
yeah, yeah,
because those guys, they did what the program teaches them to do, and they're still sober because
yeah.
they
Rob.
helped you.
Yeah, Rob changed my life, bro, with the steps. Absolutely. Now I'm always an honest person. Since I've had my daughter, I'm not in meetings as much. I haven't really been working with him as much as I should.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some things that I'm dealing with personal level with my baby mother, where I can't really do it. It's not. I do virtual meetings, but I tell you, I still live recovery on a daily basis. I still try to help people. It's just I'm struggling financially, vehicle wise. I still dealing with repercussions from my past, paying off my license, and so I can't really make it to meetings as much as I want. But I can guarantee you, once my daughter gets into daycare, I'll be full-fledged. Sponsoring people, going to meetings, doing H&Is, all that again.
Yeah.
But right now it is kind of on a pause. But I still make sure I stay on a common ground, do a gratitude list, prayer, meditation,
Mm-hmm.
try to help another alcoholic, talk to another alcoholic, and do things like I'm doing today.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
you're also helping people today by being on the podcast. So
Absolutely.
you're still doing service work.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, some people in the rooms may say it's technically not so.
Yeah,
You're giving someone hope.
absolutely.
And that's what we do.
Absolutely.
We can help people any area of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, really quick. When you were in jail for the 8 months, what was the craziest thing that you witnessed in jail?
The craziest thing that I witnessed in jail, man, there was a couple of them. I mean, think of the craziest one would probably be, I'd say, bro, two guys, bro, having sex in a cell. That would probably be in a county jail. Um, you know, we're playing spades, and I remember the one dude was kind of gay. Not kind of gay, but I could tell he was flamboyant. And the second guy was kind of like a tough ass. He wasn't. I was like, ain't nothing gay about
Alpha.
him. Yeah. And I remember seeing them both go up into the room and have sex, bro. And that like, it amazed me, bro. Like I understand if you go to prison for 10, 12 years, right? maybe you might be like, all right, this is the route I'm gonna go. But in the county jail, man, you got 8 months, 10 months, 12 months. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just in them. Another crazy thing I seen is one of my boys that I knew from back home. He was a blood gang member, and I remember his 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 sister his sister goes out with my sister's baby daddy. So my sister's baby daddy has a brother, and my sister's baby daddy's brother goes out with the dude's sister, and the dude I was in the county jail with. And it was a small world. I'm like, yo, do you know my Amanda? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I know Dylan and I know his brother, and my sister goes out with his brother. I was like, I guess in a sense we're kind of related. And we started kicking off, and I was in my addiction. I told him, I'm messed up on fentanyl on the streets, and I'm in here for 8 months. And he's like, all right. He's like, if you need anything, I'll help you out with some canteen or whatever. And I remember, hearing a fight, and I look out the window, and it's him fighting 3 dudes at one time. And bro, he went all out, bro. He took his shirt off, beat the brakes off the dude, blood everywhere. And they took him out in handcuffs. And the first thing that came to my mind was like, damn, now I'm not gonna get that bag of canteen that he was gonna buy me. But yeah, I mean, I've seen some crazy things in jail. More or less a lot of addiction type stuff,
Yeah,
man.
of course.
Like people, taking 20 Narotans at one time, or, I did see at the end, my last bid, I seen that they brung Subutex in jail and Suboxone's in jail now. So you can actually get them. Matter of fact, my last time in jail, I had went to the detox in the main jail, and I made it to the Conti, which is in Broward. And I had already detoxed, bro. I was like day 8. I would just get my energy back, and I was a trustee in the unit. And this dude, and being a trustee, you get like 4 or 5 extra trays at nighttime. And I remember this dude's like, hey, I get subs if you got some extra trays. And I was like, what? You get subs? I'm like, I'm dope. I wasn't really dope sick, but I was just getting over it. And I'm like, bro, I'll give you 5 trays if you get me just 2 4 milligram, Suboxones. And I thought he was bullshitting, bigger than shit, bro. He fucking cheeked them and gave them to me at the end of the night. And bro, and I took them, and I remember sitting, because, trustee, once they locked down the floor, you got the TV with the remote. And I remember sitting there, and bro, the Suboxones actually got me high from being sober 8 days. And I remember sitting in jail, bro, like having a buzz, and like, I was like, bro, this shit's amazing. Like I never, like all my detoxes, bro, all they gave you was like an Advil and maybe like a laxative medication, like
Yeah.
cold turkey, bro. And that was another thing I went through. It was like all the time, bro. Every time I would go to jail, kicking a cold turkey habit, bro.
What was it like detoxing from fentanyl?
It was bad, bro. I don't wish it upon my worst enemy. Honestly, bro, it's like, for the viewers, if anybody went through, COVID, bro, it's like COVID times 10. It's bad, bro. You can't, no energy, you can't walk. Cold, hot, cold, hot. You feel like you got ants under your knees. Like, bro, it's bad. It's bad. You want to take a shower, but you don't have the energy to take a shower. Like, it's not easy, bro.
How many days does it last?
I'd say depending on your habit. Mine, I was maybe doing like $100 worth a day, so I'd say like strong 5-7 days. I'd say the after effect up to 14 days. But the last like 7 are just like the after effect of not having energy.
Yeah.
But like throwing up, shivering, shitting yourself, whatever. That's like the first 5 to 7 days are bad.
How long did it take for your mental to go back to normal?
I'd say, bro, that changed in rehab. I'd say that changed in I don't know if fully, but I remember like having a psychic change sitting in rehab, because, I was sitting there, and I'm like, what was on my mind was like hopping the fence, maybe going to use again, and like, where am I gonna get the money? And all these thoughts are going through my head, and I remember just thugging it out, taking the medication, the Suboxone, and eating and going to these groups. I remember, bro, like a light switch. It was like, all right, now it's like, what halfway am I gonna go to? What job am I gonna
Wow.
get? And bro, and and I tell people all the time, like, that's why you need that, that pause, because eventually you're gonna have that psychic change, bro, where it's not gonna be, where can I get this dope, or it's gonna be like, what can I do for my future? And I had that in rehab, bro. Like I was like, all right, like I'm gonna get this job, I'm gonna go to this halfway, I'm gonna save up some money. And I know, but just as quick as you get that psychic change, if you use that psychic change will go away. And it'll be how much money can I get to get high? And just all mental, bro. It
Yeah.
has a lot to do with your mental aspect, bro.
Last thing, when and how did you get a grill? What prompted you to get one?
That was early on. I'd say 2015. Just after drug use, not taking care of your teeth, and I was just like, it was an easy fix, right? Go to the swap shop in Broward. Pay $800 for the top, 800 for the bottom. They're plated, so they're not like solid, which I didn't care. They're in my mouth.
Yep.
If you get solid, a lot of times they're more soft. Because gold's very dense. So like I could eat with mine and they won't bend. Now, if you get full gold, they're very dense. So a lot of times they'll snap, they'll break, or they'll bend. So I was like $800, $1,600 versus going to a dentist and getting like veneers nowadays are 10 grand, But like I told you, that is a goal. And it's not that I don't like them. It's that it's just not the type of people I want to surround myself around anymore, right? My goal is to be around, people like yourself, doctors, lawyers,
Oh, like
people,
myself. I'm a degenerate. I don't know if you want to be around me.
just people that like actually got things going for themselves and not the image that gold teeth and tattoos portray.
Yeah.
That's just my outlook on it. And then I have a daughter too. White teeth are just, I think, a little bit more professional. A little bit more professional. But, my baby mama said that's the thing that caught her eye was a white boy with gold teeth. So, if that's what she likes, then I'll rock it until I can get the money to fix them.
Yeah.
But until then, I mean, I like them. They're cool. They're unique. One thing about me, man, I like to be different, bro. I ran into a couple of people in West Palm, white boys that had golds, but I just, growing up, I was always trying to be like somebody else,
Mm.
And today I don't care to be like, anybody else. I want to be unique. I want to be different. I also just recently got back into health, bro. Like I'm working out like a dog now.
Yeah, you got some muscle to you,
Yeah,
bro.
bro. I got on TRT therapy, which,
That's great.
yeah, it's awesome. I'm not really into steroids, but TRT, it's, from as long as I use drugs, bro, it's very healthy.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
my levels were very low.
It's not a mood or a mind altering
No,
substance.
no, it's definitely not. It's something that we naturally occur in our body. It's just
Mhm.
from using drugs, it's so depleted.
It depletes.
Yeah,
So
so
like 100, 200.
yeah, so
Yeah,
it just it gives me energy.
Mhm.
It makes me feel like like I'm 20 years old versus feeling like I'm 40 when I'm really 31,
Mhm.
because drugs definitely age us. And
Mhm.
I remember before I got on, I had no sex drive,
Yeah.
like no energy, and now, so yeah, I see a doctor once a month, and other than that, bro, I haven't had a drink or a drug, and basically January 1st will be a year.
That's great, man.
And
Congratulations again.
life's good, man.
It's amazing.
And I continue to just keep trying to help people and continue to keep trying to spread the message of recovery, strength, and hope.
Yeah. Well, I want to congratulate you again on 1 year. Thank you for coming out here, for coming on,
Absolutely.
taking time out of your day, out of your work day.
Absolutely.
And you're a miracle. And thanks again, man.
Absolutely, brother.